Okay, so we'll start by 8 p.m. If you can hear me clearly, just indicate on the comment section so I can know my audio setup is fine. If you can hear me clearly, just indicate while we wait for others to join by 8 p.m. Okay, so share this link with your friends. If there's anybody you know who is interested in studying the USA, share this link with them so they can join us. We start exactly by 8 p.m. Okay. So welcome Jerry, welcome Felix, welcome Kings, Daniel, Chiemeka, and Sydney. Welcome, guys. Okay, so for those joining us now, we are starting exactly by 8 p.m. That was the initial announcement I made. So I'll wait for 8 more minutes and then we start. Okay. Again, I see no sense. Can you hear me clearly? If you can, please indicate, please. Hello, Jenny. So good evening, everybody. I want to believe everyone can hear me clearly. It's 8 p.m., so we start immediately. So if you can hear me clearly, just signify by writing it down in the comment section so I can know you guys can hear me clearly. Perfect. Okay, so good evening, everybody. Um, my name is Martin. Most of you are my friends here on Facebook, and I want to start by saying um, a lot of persons, some of my friends have been reaching out to me, asking me, to put them through the entire process of how I came to the US and for my master's program. And I've been trying to do this, in their inboxes and on phone and stuff. But I discovered that because I don't have all the time in this world, and because graduate school is very stressful, um, I needed to do a Facebook live session where I can explain the entire process from the beginning to the end. And after this session, also I'll be uploading this video on my YouTube channel. So people who missed out on this session today can always go to YouTube to watch the video. Okay. So the reason why I'm doing this is I want to help as many persons as possible to be able to get this same opportunity that I've gotten. Studying in the US is one of the best things that happened to you in life, because US arguably has one of the best educational system in the world. So when if you want to receive quality education, I think US is the place to be. Okay. So I'll be speaking for US. It's possible some of us here might be interested in other countries like the UK and the Canada. Um, I cannot speak for UK and Canada because I've not tried out the process. But for US study visa process, I think I'm very well knowledgeable about it, and so you're going to stick to US. So I came into the US in December 2021, and that was like 4 months ago. I'm at Western Illinois University where I'm studying data analytics. Okay. I started the process to come into the US in June 2021. Okay. And but before I applied in June 2021, between January of last year to the point where I did my interview, that was in November last year, there was practically no day I did not go to Nairaland. I did not go to YouTube to read something about the US visa process. I was always researching. I was reading about interview process, about how to find schools, about how to find scholarship. So I spent the whole of last year doing a lot of research. Information, they say, is power. And if you're going to be successful in this quest to studying abroad, you need a lot of information, a whole lot of information. There's some information that I have today that, or I had before when I was applying, that if I didn't have those information, I don't think I would have gotten the visa. I tried out my visa interview was done just once. Unlike people who do go for the first interview, second interview, and they keep getting rejected. I went for my first interview, and in 3 minutes, my visa was approved. So we're going to talk about the visa process later on, but let's start from the beginning. So, what are the first steps for those who are interested in studying in the US? So, the first thing you have to do is I want to do a little bit of motivation because a lot of people say, "Oh, don't worry, US is very difficult to go to. They won't give you visa." I hear people say that a lot. You can't get visa to US. That's not true. Okay, lots and lots of people keep getting visas every single day. Okay, people go to the embassies and they come out with a white slip. So if anybody tells you that you can't get visa to the US, that's not true. Okay. If you're a genuine student, you do your research very well, you're going to get your visa approved. The key word is if you're a genuine student. Because a lot of people there are people who just want to japa. So they're not interested in studies, they're not interested in in school. They're looking for an avenue to travel to the US. Okay. So if you're that kind of person, you might have issues. But if you're a genuine student and you really want to study, it should be very easy for you to get your visa approved. And I'm going to tell you why and how when we get to that point. So don't listen to anybody who tells you this is not possible. The only thing is going to take you time and it's going to take you money because the entire process is going to consume a lot of money. Okay. So I'm going to tell you exactly how much that it cost me to come to this place. Now, the first thing you have to do is to do a research. Research is very key and important. The reason why I have to do research is because there are almost 4,000 institutions of higher learning in the United States of America. Almost 4,000. There are 50 states in the US, and each state has an average of about 20 to 30 universities, each state. So, meaning that the options are many, they are large. So, you have to do a lot of research to find out the particular states, which states do you want to school in? Okay, so that's the first consideration you have to make. So, if you're conscious of the weather, then you have to be looking at states in maybe Texas or California, where they have like very temperate weather conditions. Okay. Or if you have friends or families living in certain states, you may want to limit your options to those states. Okay. My school is in Illinois. Illinois is the midwestern part of the US. So the first thing is decide on which states you want to go to. And then the second thing is which school in the US do you want to apply to? Like I mentioned earlier on, we have over 4,000 schools. Okay. Now, so there's a website called mastersportal.com. Mastersportal.com is a website where you can go, input the name of the course you want to do and the country, in this case, USA. And I'm going to give you a list of all the schools in the USA that offers that course. Okay. So I'm just going to type in the name of the website, www.mastersportal.com. Okay, so you can go to mastersportals.com and then search for input the name of the school, sorry, the course you want to do, and then you see all of the schools doing that course. Now, what you have to do is, I advise students to do this. Get an Excel sheet, have a column for name of the school, have a column for the school's website, have a column for the requirements. The reason why I have to do this is because different schools have different requirements. There are schools that will ask you, oh, just submit a transcript and that's it. Some schools will tell you, bring your transcript, bring your letters of recommendation, bring your evaluated transcripts, and so on and so forth. So you have to keep a list of all the schools you're interested in, the course that they do in those schools, and then the requirements for those schools. Then also another thing you have to be conscious of is in the United States of America, there are different grades of schools. Okay. So even though it's not official, but there are schools that are grade A schools, there are schools that are grade B schools, and there are schools that are grade C schools. The reason why you need to know this is grade A schools are very competitive, very, very competitive. So if you're applying to a grade A school, you need to ensure that you have a very good profile. And when I mean you have a very good profile, your CGPA, you should be a first class student or close to a first class student. Your GRE score has to be very high, at least 300 and above. Okay. You need to have excellent recommendation letters, and then you need to have a very fine statement of purpose. Okay. We're going to talk about all of these things later on. Okay. So if you're applying to a school, for instance, the Ivy League schools, Ivy League schools, the Stanford University, the Harvard University, the Columbia University, the Yale University. So these schools are like top end or high end universities. Okay. Okay. So they are very competitive. The admission rate is about 2 to 3%, meaning that out of every 100 students that applies, out of every 100 applicants, they give admission to, let's say, two or three. Okay. So, but there are schools that are, let's say, in grade B, their admission rate is about 50%. And then there are schools also in the US with admission rate of almost 90%, meaning almost everybody who applies to those schools will definitely get admitted. Okay. Now, to give you an idea, most of the schools in the town, like in the big cities, schools in the big cities are usually more competitive. Okay. So schools in California, Schools in Chicago, schools in New York, schools in those big cities are very competitive. Okay, so these are things you have to look out for. So depending on your profile, if your CGPA is not too fantastic, then you don't have to bother applying to those big schools. I'm not saying it's not possible to get admission. It's possible to get admitted to those schools, but you stand a higher chance of getting admission if you apply to the lower schools. Okay. And then so when you go to mastersportal.com and you have a list of all the schools you're interested in, you have to go to their websites individually. Go to their websites, and then this is where you now find out the particular or the specific requirements for those schools. Okay. So that's that about researching your options. So in my case, I researched and I found out about four schools that I applied to. I applied to Western Illinois University, applied to State University of Illinois, I applied to George Washington University, and so all three gave me admissions. And then I went to the embassy with just one of them. So the second thing is to plan your finances. So, like I mentioned earlier on, studying in the US can be very expensive. I mean, very, very expensive, and that is why even citizens of United States of America and permanent residents don't even pay for not even pay their tuition off their pockets. A lot of them use student loans. A lot of them use student loans and financial aids. Okay, so you need to plan. You need to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to the US, and it's going to be expensive. How exactly do I how exactly do I go about it? So there are so many options available to you. So the first one is if you can afford it. Oh, you're good. The average tuition for a university in the US is about $25,000. If you can afford $25,000 for a year, you're good to go. If your only option of going to the US is through scholarship, then you have to start looking out for how to get scholarships. Okay. So there are so many scholarship opportunities, a whole lot of scholarship opportunities in the USA. Different schools have different scholarships that they offer to the students. So I'm going to talk about a couple of them. The first one is the one called graduate assistantship. So graduate assistantship is you're employed by the school. You're employed by the school to assist a lecturer, a professor in basic administrative duties. And in exchange for that, your tuition is waived, and every month you get you get a stipend from the school. For most schools, the stipend is between $900 to $1,200. So your tuition is waived, and then you get a stipend of $1,000 on average every month. So with the stipend, you can take care of your accommodation, your feeding for the entire year. So a lot of students actually go for the graduate assistantship. Okay, so depending on the school you're applying to, different schools have different process for graduate assistantship. Some of them will tell you once you apply to the departments, by default, you're considered for graduate assistantship. Some other schools will say if you apply, there's a separate application process for graduate assistantship. So you have to apply also for the graduate assistantship. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is teaching assistantship and research assistantship. Sorry, research assistantship. So research assistantship is that you're going to help a professor. You're going to assist a professor who is doing a research work in his or her lab. Okay, so you're going to be like a lab attendant. Okay, similar to the graduate assistantship, your tuition is going to be waived, so you don't have to pay for tuition, and you also get to receive a stipend at the end of every month. And then the third one would be general scholarships available for students of a particular school. For instance, in my school, Western Illinois University, if your CGPA in Nigeria is up to 3.7 over 5, you get $4,000 scholarship. So by default, so once you apply to the school and analyze your transcript and they see you have up to 3.7, they give you $4,000 scholarship. Okay, so different schools, have different scholarships that they give. Some are merit based in the sense that by the time everybody applies to the department, they say, okay, you want to give out 5 scholarships. They take the first or the top 5 applicants and they give all those scholarships to them. Some of these scholarships are need based. Need-based in the sense that you have to indicate that you really have financial issues or that you're unable to pay your fees. And then the committee can now sit down and then look at all the options they have together and then award this scholarship to those who they think deserves this scholarship. Okay. So these are some of the considerations you have to make regarding your finances. Okay. Then the third one is to complete your application process. Okay. So complete your application process. Now, for most schools in the United States of America, there are usually 3 semesters. The first one is the fall. Fall starts in August. The second one is the spring. Spring starts in January. And then the third one is the summer. Summer starts in June. Okay. So you have to decide when do you want to start? Do you want to start in fall, August, or do you want to start in January, that's spring? Most students usually start in fall. Most schools in the United States of America, almost all schools in the United States of America have their all the courses have their start date as fall. Some have start dates in January, and very few have their start dates in summer. So the first thing is to decide when exactly you want to start. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is to get your transcript ready. Okay. Your transcript is very important because that is the first document the school will look at. Okay. So your transcript, you have the official transcripts and the unofficial transcripts. Okay. The unofficial transcript is the one the school gave to you, the student's copy, the one that has student's copy on it that you can upload to the schools directly. While the official transcript is the one the school sends directly, that's your school in Nigeria sends directly to the schools in the United States of America. So the way it works is most schools in the US will ask you to submit your unofficial transcripts. You submit your unofficial transcript and it's used for the processing of your admission. The moment you get admission, you will now have to ask your school in Nigeria to send the official transcripts directly to the university in the US. What makes it official is the fact that it goes directly from the university in Nigeria to the university in the US. You don't get to see it, it doesn't get to pass through you. Okay. So if you don't have your transcript, the first thing is to make sure you have your transcripts. Get a copy of your transcripts. Have a PDF version of your transcripts in your computer so that you can easily send it out to schools that request for it. Okay. The second thing I want to talk about is WES evaluation. WES stands for World Educational Service. It's a company or it's a service that standardizes university education all over the world. Okay. So because Nigeria operates on a 5.0 CGPA and universities in the USA operates on a 4.0 CGPA, it is important to find out the equivalent of your grade in the United States educational system. So WES will help you evaluate your transcript. So there are schools in the US that would insist that your transcript is evaluated before you can apply to them. Okay. And it's understandable. In the United States of America, for instance, for you to have an A, in most schools, you need to score at least a 90. Okay. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, for you to have an A, with 70, you have an A. Okay. So they really want to understand. So you claim you have 3.5 over 5.0 in Nigeria. We need to understand what the equivalent is in the American standard. Okay. So you have to go to west.com or west.org and then you pay them money. The fee is about $210. $210 in Naira is about 120,000. So with 120,000, they will evaluate your transcript for you and keep a copy for you. The good thing about WES evaluation is that once they have a copy of your transcript with you, you don't have any business going back to your school anymore in terms of collection of transcripts. Any other school in the future that ask for your transcripts, you can easily ask WES to send a transcript to that school. And in less than 24 hours, your transcript is sent to them. Okay, so my transcript is evaluated by WES right now. So in the future, if I have need to apply to any other school, maybe for my PhD or for any other masters, I don't have business going back to my school in Nigeria to ask for transcripts. I'll simply send a mail to WES, and WES will forward my transcripts to whatever school it is in less than 24 hours. Okay. Another thing is GRE. So GRE exam, GRE stands for Graduates Regularized Exam or graduate regular exam. So it's a standardized exam for graduate students in the United States of America. Okay. While it is optional for most schools, there are schools that insist that you must have your GRE. To register for a GRE in Nigeria costs about $205, which is equivalent of 117,000 naira. Okay. Now, I didn't write the GRE because my school waived the GRE. Okay. But there are some schools that will insist that you have to do a GRE. But our advice, if you're coming to the United States of America and you are so desirous of getting a fully funded scholarship, you're so desirous of getting graduate assistantship, our advice that you write your GRE exams. Okay, write your GRE exams. If you have a high score, a score of about 300 and above in your GRE, you stand a high chance of getting a fully funded scholarship. Okay, so if you can, please, the GRE exam will take you about 3 months of constant practice. If you want to pass the exam, you need to dedicate at least 3 months to prepare for this exam. Okay. Now, another one is the TOEFL. TOEFL is a test of English language. Almost all the universities in the US waive TOEFL for Nigerian students. I mean, almost all. I think about 95% of the universities in the US will tell you that if you did your first degree in English language, your TOEFL can be waived. Okay, so it's not really compulsory that I write the TOEFL exam, except you just want to write it for writing sake. Okay, another document you need is your statement of purpose. Your statement of purpose is a document that says, this is what I want to do in my life. This is what I want to do this course. These are my research interests. This is my motivation. So it's most times a two-page document that explains or that makes a case for why you should be admitted. Okay, so there's no general statement of purpose. Every statement of purpose is tailored to the particular program that you're applying to and the particular university that you're interested in. So there's nothing like I have one statement of purpose and then you send it out to 5 universities. So for every university you're writing to, or for every course or program you're interested in, you craft a statement of purpose that is aligned to that particular program. Okay. It is very important that you have a very fantastic statement of purpose. And then the last but not the least is letters of recommendation. Most schools in the US will ask you to get at least 2 letters of recommendations if you're applying to graduate programs in their school. Preferably, one of them should be a professor or a lecturer in the university where you did your first degree. And then the second letter of recommendation should come from um, someone you've worked with in the past, maybe your former boss or someone in the professional field. Okay. So to recap, first thing is your transcripts. Second thing is your WES evaluation, which is optional. Third one is your GRE exam, which is optional. Fourth one is the TOEFL exam. The fifth one is statement of purpose. And then the last but not the least is your letters of recommendation. Okay. So once you have all of these things, you apply to the school. On the average, most schools will take about 3 weeks to 1 month to review your application and get back to you. Okay. So the review application, if you're successful, they'll send you a letter saying, congratulations, you've gotten admission to so and so school. And if you're not successful, you also get a regret email. Okay. There's no school in the US that will ghost you. You will definitely get a response from them. Now, most of these schools have what we call application fees. Okay, so application fee is the amount of money you pay when you submit your application to aid the processing of your application. On the average, most schools will charge you about $100 to apply to their schools in terms of application fees. Okay, so I'll recommend that everybody who is interested in studying in the US applies to at least 3 schools. You should apply to at least 3 schools. It will help you when you're going for your visa interview, because one of the questions they're going to ask you is how many schools do they apply to? And if you tell them you apply to one school, they kind of look at you like an unserious student. But if you tell them you apply to 3 schools, 4 schools, it's okay. Okay, this guy looks like he's interested in study abroad. So it's a trick. So try and apply to at least 3 schools. Another reason why you should do that is so that you have options. So if one school fails you, you can fall back to another school. I applied to 3 schools and I got admitted to all 3 schools. Okay. Now, once you are admitted to university in the US, they're going to issue you an admission letter. But you can't take that admission letter to the embassy. Okay. What you take to the embassy is a document called the I-20. Your I-20. So the I-20 is a document that they will give to you that has your name, your date of birth, the program you're admitted to, the cost of the program, how much it's going to cost you for the program, the funds available to you, so the funds available to you, okay, and then the name of the officer, the immigration officer in your school, because each school has an immigration officer. They're called DSO. They're called DSO. Okay, so for you to get an I-20, you need to submit your proof of funding to the school. The school will ask you to submit a statement of accounts that shows that you can fund yourself while you're in university. Okay. So for instance, if your tuition and living expenses for 1 year is going to be $20,000, the school will expect you to send them a statement of accounts that has at least the equivalent of $20,000. Okay. So the statement of account must not be yours. It can be that of a friend, it can be that of your family, it can be anybody's statement of account, as long as the money is available to you to use. Okay. Submit the statement of account to them, and then in 2 weeks, they're going to prepare your I-20 and send to you. Okay. Once you have your I-20, the next step is to start applying for your visa appointments. Okay. Now, to apply for a visa appointment, there are some documents you need. The first one is your I-20. The second one is your service fee. The service stands for Students and Exchange Visitors Program. Okay, so it's compulsory that anybody who is coming to the US to study from anywhere in the world is going to pay this service fee. This service fee will cost you $350. Okay, unfortunately, right now there's no way for you to make that payment from Nigeria. Okay, there's no way for you to make that payment from Nigeria, because the only 2 options for service fee payments currently is Western Union and money order. And if you're in Nigeria, you can't do Western Union from Nigeria. You can't send out money from Nigeria via Western Union, and you can't do money order in Nigeria. So what it means is that you have to look for someone in the US that can help you make your service fee payments. Remember, I said it's $350. Okay, so in the letter that the school will send to you, in the I-20, they're going to send you a link for payments of your service fee. I'm going to post the link right now, so you can also take notes. You can take notes of the link too. Okay, so I just posted a link. So that's the link for your service fee payment. So once you're done paying for your service fee, the next thing you're going to do is to fill your DS160 form. Okay, fill your DS160 form. Your DS160 form is the most important part of your application. Please take note of what I'm saying. From experience, your DS160 form is the reason why your visa is going to get approved or denied. It is more important than any other thing, including the interview you're going for. Any mistake you make in your DS160 form will cost you all the money you've spent and the time and resources you've done applying to these schools. Okay, so you have to be very painstaking and meticulous about filling this form. Okay, our advice that after filling the form, you can look out for anybody who is experienced with the process. Let the person go through your form, see what you filled, and make sure you're not making any mistake. It is very important, because any mistake you make here will cost you this opportunity you already have. Okay, so I'm going to add a link for filling your Ds160 form. Okay. So once you're done filling your Ds160 form, you're going to print out a confirmation page. Confirmation page is going to have your passport, your name, your date of birth, and a barcode. Okay. Once you have your Ds160 form, you will now go to the US Embassy in Nigeria, their website, and schedule your interview. Schedule for your interview. I'm going to post a link to the website for scheduling for interviews. The website is ustraveldocs.com/ng. ustraveldocs.com/ng. So you go to these websites and you schedule for your interview. So right now you can either interview in Lagos or in Abuja. Particularly, I have a preference for Abuja, and so I'd like to advise my friends to go to Abuja for their interviews. Okay. People get approved in Lagos, people get approved in Abuja, but I think Lagos has more population than Abuja. Okay, so the visa officers in Abuja are a little bit more relaxed than the ones in Lagos. Okay, so but whichever one works for you is fine. Okay, so you go to these websites and then you schedule for your visa. Okay. Now, the problem most people have is that it's not easy to get a closer date to your resumption. Okay, and this is because a lot of people are also trying to get dates. You're not the only person trying to get dates. A lot of people everybody's in a hurry. They want to leave for so many reasons, and not just for student visa. Some are going for medical reasons, some are going to join their family, some are going for business. So if you go to this website and you schedule for your interview, it's very possible that you get a date that is after your resumption date. Okay. So for instance, if your resumption date is 15th of August, it's possible you get a date of, let's say, September or October or November. Okay. So when you get that date, you don't need to panic. Okay. You don't need to panic. So there's something called emergency appointment. Okay. If your resumption date is at least 30 days away, you can apply for emergency appointments. Okay. So on the portal, the same ustraveldoc.com.ng, you see an option for emergency appointment. So click on emergency appointments, give them your details like when is your school resuming, send them a copy of your I-20 so they can see the resumption date and stuff. Once you send those documents in, definitely you're going to be approved for emergency appointments. So emergency appointment, they're going to give you a date that is before your resumption dates. Okay. So you don't need to be scared each time you apply, except you've applied before and you were denied. But if you've not applied to the US Embassy for student visa, and that's your first time, and you have a date that is after resumption date, click on emergency appointments, and you definitely get your emergency appointments approved. Okay. So once you have it approved, the next thing you have to do is to prepare for your interview. Okay. Prepare for your interview. So a lot of people are scared. A lot of people are usually scared and they are very fidgety about the interview process. When I went for my interview, I discovered one of the things I discovered was that a lot of people especially those who interviewed before me, they were mumbling their words. They were not coherent, and they were very timid. Some of them were shy. And when you have stage fright or when you're interviewing in front of someone, and then you're having stage frights and you're not coherent, like it makes you look like an unserious student, or it doesn't make you look like a genuine student. So one of the things you need to have is self-confidence. I tell people you need to be confident. You need to see it as a conversation. Basically, what they want to do is they want to know if you're a genuine student. Okay, they want to know if you really want to go to the US to study. So you need to come up with a calm disposition, a nice demeanor, answer your questions with a smiley face, look them straight to their eyes, and be bold and confident in what you're saying. Okay. So you need that. So if you're someone if you have stage fright, you need to start practicing. You need to start talking to the mirror. Okay. There are some questions that they would always ask you. Questions like, why are you going to the US? Why did you choose this school? Why did you choose this course? Who is going to take care of, who is going to sponsor your education? Okay. So these are like very common questions. So you have to stay, look at yourself, look at the mirror, ask yourself these questions, and then you answer them in very convincing ways and manner. Okay. Most times, on the average, the interview process will last, let's say, between 3 minutes to 5 minutes. My interview process lasted for just 3 minutes. Okay. Oh, can we meet you? Oh, my name is Martin Owakwe. Oh, can see you're going to the United States of America. Um, what course are you studying? And I told them the course I'm studying. Okay, so who's going to sponsor your your education? And I told them. And the next question was, so what do you do currently? And I told them. And then the next thing is, okay, everything checks out good. Okay, approve your visa. Blah 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 blah. Pick up your passports in 3 days, and that was it. Okay. So you need to be confident in your answers, and most importantly, most importantly, do not contradict yourself, especially with what you've written in your DS160 form that you submitted already. Remember, I mentioned that the DS160 form is the most important part, of this whole study abroad process. Okay, because when you submit your DS160 form to them, they are going to do a review of your application before your interview date. They're going to review the application, because in the DS160 form, you're going to give them every single detail about you. US, they want to know everything about you. Are you married? Do you have children? How about your parents? Do you know anybody in the US? Have you been to the US before? Have you been denied visa before? Have you been arrested before? They want to know every single thing about you. Okay. And so when you submit this form, they're going to do an investigation about you. Google your name, go to social media, see the kind of things you post, run your name through their database. And so by the time you come for the interview, at least to a certain extent, they already know if you'll be given the visa or not, based off the investigation they've done. Okay. So if you now come for the interview and they now ask you who is going to sponsor you, and you say your dad, meanwhile in the form you said your mom will sponsor you, that's automatic rejection. The moment you contradict yourself, you're automatically denied. Another thing they frown at is agents. They always tell you, do your application yourself. Do your application yourself. Okay. So even if an agent is going to help you do your application, make sure you go through the application. Once they are done submitting the application, make sure you go through it yourself and you know exactly everything that is in the form that they filled. Okay. So some agents will just go fill application for you and then tell you to go for interview. You don't know what they filled in the form, and then you go for the interview. They ask you, "Oh, so where are you working currently?" And you say you're working at so and so place, or let's say you're working at Dangote refineries, for instance. Meanwhile, your 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 agent has filled in that you're working at Dangote Cement Company. The moment they see any atom of contradiction in your application, your your study visa gets rejected. Okay, so you have to be very painstaking about the interview process. Okay, so at the end of the interview, if you're successful, they're going to give you a white slip. That white slip will tell you, congratulations, this is where you can go and pick up your passport after 3 days. In most cases, it's usually a DHL office. And then if you're denied, you'll be given a pink form, a pink paper that states the reason why your visa was denied. Okay, so this is a brief summary of the entire process, from the point of looking for admission, to the point of interview. So to give you a bit of timeline on how long it will take to do all of these things, using my own experience, um, I applied to the school, I think sometime in May. I applied for spring resumption. Like I mentioned earlier on, spring resumption is January resumption. So I applied sometime in May, and in August, I got the admission. Okay, so because I submitted my statement of accounts alongside my application, so everything came out together. My admission letter and my I-20 came out at the same time. So my I-20 came out in August. That same August, I paid my service fee and scheduled my interview. So in August, I was given an interview date of November 3rd. Okay. So that's about three, less than 3 months. August, September, October, November. That's about 3 months. Okay, so between August and November, I had 3 months to prepare for my interview. And then I went for my interview November 3rd, and then that day I got my visa. So on the average, you should be looking at between 4 to 6 months. Okay, between 4 to 6 months for the entire process. If you're interested in starting in August, most of the schools in the United States of America are already concluding the admission process for August. Most of the schools. For instance, my school just ended on the 1st of April, 2 days ago. Okay. But there are still a few schools who are still accepting application. So if you're interested in resuming in August, it means you need to start ASAP. You need to apply to these schools immediately. Okay. If you're interested in applying in starting in January, that's spring 2023, now is a good time to start, write your GRE exam, get your statement of purpose, start talking to your professors and your colleagues for letters of recommendation. This is a good time to start if you're interested in starting in spring next year. So that's a brief rundown of what the process looks like. So I'll take the next 20 minutes answering questions. If there are specific questions you have, if there are things you think I should talk about, um, you should just go ahead and ask your questions. In the next 20 minutes, we should be done with this. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to answer some of the questions here. So the first question is from Ikena. It says, I'm currently a master's student in Poland. How can I get a PhD position? Okay. So the first thing I have to say is that most PhD positions in the United States of America are fully funded. Okay. It's fully funded because if you're doing a PhD, you're contributing to the body of knowledge. Okay, your research, the research work you're coming to do is going to contribute to the well-being of the society. Okay, so what it means is that um, first of all, you have to look out for supervisors. Okay, so do a research, look out for the schools you're interested in, the schools that are doing the program you're interested in, and reach out to the professors. Almost all the schools university have a directory of all of their professors and lecturers on their school websites. So go to the school websites, get the professors who are doing the program they're interested in doing, and then send them a personalized email. Okay, send them an email saying, "Hi, Professor Francis. My name is Susan So person. I've seen your work, your research work on Susan So, and I think it aligns with the current research I'm doing. I'm interested in doing a PhD in your school, and I would love for you to mentor me. I would love for you to supervise my project." So you reach out to as many professors as possible. Okay. Some of them will reach out to you saying, "Okay, that's cool. Submit your application." But don't submit an application if you've not gotten a consent of a professor yet. And don't accept any offer from any school in the United States of America without fully funding, especially for your master's, especially for your PhD. Okay, the average PhD program in the United States of America is about 4 years. Okay, so you don't want to spend 4 years just studying in the United States of America, paying your tuition and living expenses without getting anything in return. Okay, So reach out to the professors in the respective schools you're interested in, and then you can take it up from there. So Mr. Oguchiemeka is asking, on the average, how much do you think is involved in the whole process? So on the average, okay. So let's look at all the fees involved. The first one is your passports. I forgot to mention that earlier on, your international passports. So you need to get international passports. On the average, it will cost you 35,000 naira. Second thing is you need to apply to the schools. So apply to the schools. Each school will charge you about $100 for application. So if you're applying to 3 schools, that's about $300. Okay, $300 is equivalent of 180,000 naira. So application fee, 180,000 naira. The next thing you're going to do is evaluation of your transcripts. If the school you're interested in requires it, you have to evaluate your transcript for $210, which is equivalent of 120,000. Then if you're going to write GRE exam, the GRE exam is about 100,000 naira, depending on where you register. And then your service fee is $350. $350 is about 200,000. And then your visa application form, that's to schedule for your visa interview, is 160,000, which is 65,000 naira in naira. So on the average, you're looking at about 300, 400, 500, 600, looking at about 700,000 naira on the average. That's excluding your tuition fee is 700K. Okay, but if you're lucky and you're applying to schools that don't require to do WES evaluation, that don't require to do GRE, you spend way less. For instance, my school, Western Illinois University, you don't have to write a GRE, you don't have to write TOEFL, and you don't have to evaluate your transcripts. So basically what I paid for was just application fee, service fee, and then visa fee. So with less than 500K, I was able to sort out the entire process. Okay. So Victor is asking, does WES accept unofficial transcripts, or your school will send it to them officially? Yeah, so WES they will request that the school sends the transcripts directly to them. It mustn't go through you. Okay. So Mr. Chidima is asking, what are the financial implications after you've acquired your visa? Okay, so once you get a visa, the next thing you have to do is just to book your flights and then travel to the US. Okay. Most schools, about 90% of the schools in the United States of America, will not ask you to pay anything until you come to school. It's when you come to school and then you now register for courses that you can now make payments. Okay, because the amount of money you pay is dependent on the number of courses that you enroll for. So someone who is doing, for instance, someone who is doing 3 courses will not pay exactly the same things with someone who is doing 4 courses or 5 courses. Okay, so most schools will ask you, come here before you pay. Okay, and then the fees here can be paid in installments. Okay, you can enroll for a payment plan and say, I want to be paying every month, I want to be paying every semester. So depending on how you want to pay, there's always a payment plan. All the schools have payment plans. So subscribe to a payment plan and you can be paying monthly. Okay. Now there's another thing I want to say, and it's very important. People ask me, oh, is it possible for me to come to the US and then I work and then I school? Okay. I'm going to be very frank with you. It is not possible for you to come to the US and work and then use the money you get from working to pay your fees. It is not possible. Anybody who tells you, don't worry, come to the US, you can work, and then while you're working, you can pay your school fees, the person is going to deceive you. Okay. The reason why it is so is because the minimum wage in most states in the US is $12. Okay, $12. As a student, you're not allowed to work more than $20. You're not allowed to work more than 20 hours in a week. If you work more than 20 hours in a week, it is illegal. And if you find out, your student visa is going to be revoked. Okay, so if you're earning $12 an hour, and then you're working for 20 hours in a week, that's about that's about 400. That's about $400 a week. Okay, so $400 a week times 4 weeks. So in a month, you're earning $1,200. So by the time they remove tax and every other thing, you end up with about $1,000. Okay, $1,000 times 12, 12 months in a year is about $12,000. So there's no school in the US that has tuition fee that is as low as $12,000. Okay, so meaning assuming every amount of money you make in the whole year goes to paying tuition, it still won't be enough. It still won't be able to cover your entire tuition. Okay, remember I mentioned that the average tuition in the US is about $18,000. Average tuition is about $18,000, and by the time you add living expenses, accommodation, and all of these other things, you're looking at about $25,000 every year. Okay, so with $1,000 a month, there's barely nothing you can do with it. Okay, the average accommodation in most schools in the US or most states is about $400. $400 a month. Your utilities, your power, your gas, your heat, your water, your internet is about $150 a month. So every month you're spending about $550 on accommodation and utilities, and then you add groceries, about $200. So living expenses, you're looking at about $700 on living expenses alone. Okay, so there's absolutely no way you can come here and work and then school. You can only work to make enough money to take care of accommodation, feeding, and some other expenses, but you can't make enough money to pay your tuition fees. So you need to know exactly what your plans are. If you have to start looking for scholarship, you have to start looking for scholarship before you come into the US. If not, you come here, you get stranded. Okay. Can you drop the link for the master's website? Okay. I dropped the link initially. It is mastersportal.com. Websites to find fully funded scholarships. All right, so there are lots of websites where you can find fully funded scholarships. Let me add some of those websites. One of them is a website that I currently own, scholarship.com. The other one is World Scholarship Forum.com. Okay, so you can go to these websites to find fully funded scholarship opportunities. Are you expected to pay your fees before visa application? No. So unlike schools in the UK will ask you to make a deposit before you can go for a visa application. Schools in the US, most schools will not ask you to pay a dime. The only payment you make is your application fee. Once you're done with the application fee, you don't have to pay anything until you get to the US. Getting proof of funds is a challenge. Please, can you throw light on how someone can go about it, especially if you don't have such money? Okay, so like I said, you can get proof of statement from anybody. Okay, you can talk to your friends, you can talk to your colleagues. I even heard there are people who do it as businesses, like you meet them, pay them a certain amount of money, and they give you statement of funds. But the problem is not getting proof of funding. The problem is what happens when you get to the US. Okay, what happens when you get to the US? Because if you just go to meet somebody, get a random statement of accounts, and then you come to the US, you have bills to pay, you have school fees to pay, tuition to pay. If the money is not really available to you, what's your plan for when you come to the US? So you have to think about that. Does scholarship students require statement of accounts? Okay, so if you get a fully funded scholarship, you don't need a statement of accounts. Okay, if you get a fully funded scholarship, when I mean fully funded scholarship, I'm talking about not just tuition. When you have tuition and living expenses paid for, you don't need to provide your statement of accounts. How much would everything cost you, including flight tickets to US? So I already talked about how much it's going to cost you. I'll post the link to this. I'll post this video on YouTube. and you can go to YouTube and watch a video if you missed out that. But for flight tickets to the US, on the average, flight ticket to the US, one leg ticket is about 300K, 300 to 350K on the average. So Chima is saying, I'm Max Chima, SPS. What about applying for a graduate program or course different from that of your BSc? Will it affect your chances of securing admission and visa? Okay. So for securing admission, so you have to look at each course have like their requirements. There are some courses that tell you, oh, you need to have like prerequisite courses in calculus, you have to have prerequisite courses in programming, in statistics, and so on and so forth. Okay. So look at the requirements of the particular course you're interested in. There are some courses that are like multidisciplinary. So anybody from any background can do those courses. For instance, in my school here, anybody can do computer science here, irrespective of your background. As long as you have a science background, you can do computer science, okay? So it doesn't matter. So it depends on the school. Different schools have different requirements. That's for securing admission. Now, for the visa interview process, you will need to convince the visa officer on why you are doing a course that is different from the one that you did your BSc in. So, for instance, you did a BSc in microbiology, and then you're doing a master's in cybersecurity. Okay, it needs to make sense to the visa officer that you're switching from microbiology to cybersecurity. So you can tell the visa officer something like, in the last 2 years, you've been employed as a cybersecurity analyst, you've been working in so and so space, you've done this, you've done that, you've built a system, you've built a technology around cybersecurity. You just need to make sense to the visa officer that switching from one career to another is a good choice. Okay. What other question am I missing out? Is graduate assistantship application for fall 2022 still possible? Yeah, very much possible. Yeah. So there are still schools. So you need to do your research. There are still schools that are currently accepting applications. So you can go ahead and do that. I'm a master's student in Poland. Can I do a second master's in USC with my master's degree certificate? Yeah, of course you can. Ella is asking, please, did you use any agency for any step of this process? Or is there any agency you might recommend for someone starting this process? Okay, so there are lots of agencies around. So if you have money and you can afford these agencies, oh, fine, go ahead. But I did every single thing myself. I did from the point of searching for universities, to applying to, I did every single thing myself. So if you want to use an agency, oh, that's fine. So for the scholarship, do you have to write an exam for it? No, there's no exam for the scholarship. You don't have to write any exam. So the only thing most schools will ask you to do is to do an essay. So you can say, oh, do an essay. Tell us why you should be awarded the scholarship. But there's no written exam. So please, what about PGD in the US? Okay, so there are certificate programs in the US, but the truth is it will be almost impossible for you to get a visa approved if you're coming to the US to do a certificate program. It will be almost impossible. Okay, so I'll rather you stick to doing master's program and not PGD. How about someone who wants to go for a first degree? Okay, so if you want to go for a first degree in the United States of America, just make sure that you're less than 18 years old. If you're above 18 years old and then you want to go and do your first degree in the US, you're just going to waste your money, because after getting the admission, no visa officer is going to give you or is going to approve your visa when you're about 20 years, 22 years, 23 years to come and do your first degree. Because the question would be, what have you been doing since you left high school or since you left secondary school? How come you've not done your first degree up until now? So they'll look at you as someone who is coming to the United States of America for purely immigration purposes. Okay. So mind you, the student visa is a non-immigrant visa. Non-immigrant visa in the sense that you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you're not coming to the US to stay. You're only coming to study and to go back. Okay. So if you let them know that you're coming to stay, you get your visa denied. Okay. So a 22-year-old person coming to do first degree is already suspicious. It raises like a red flag that this guy is just looking for a way to Jabba. And once they find out that you're coming to US to Jabba, your application gets denied. Okay. Can a married person be granted visa to travel with dependents like wife and children? Obviously, yes. So there's something called F2 visa. So if you're a student, you're going to be on F1 visa, and then your dependents can be on F2 visa. So your dependents can be your children or your spouse. Okay, um, so in applying to visa, you have to apply as an F1 student, and then your family as F2 for F2 visa. So there are people who come to the US with their spouses and children. It's very much allowed. Okay. So I think those are all the questions available here. Okay. Um, can one can one with 2-1 get admission in USA, most especially in humanity? Yeah, obviously. Yeah, if you have a 2-1 degree, that's 3.5 over 5. Most schools in the US will accept you if you have a 2-1 degree. Fantastic. Humanity course. Okay, so I would also advise that the US is so big on STEM courses. They are so big on STEM. STEM is science, technology, um, engineering, and mathematics. Okay, so if you're looking for a course to study in the US, I advise that most likely you go for a STEM course. The reason why I say you should go for a STEM course is one, you have to look at the prospects after studying. What are your prospects? Do you want to just come to the US and then after studying, spending thousands of dollars studying, by the time you are done studying, it's difficult for you to get jobs. Okay. But if you're doing a STEM course, so you're in the health, you're in the technology field, engineering, programming, computer science, these courses are highly in demand. Okay. And outside that, if you do a STEM course, you're entitled to doing 3 years. You can do 3 years postgraduate visa in the US. But if you do a non-term course, you can only do 1 year postgraduate. Okay, so after one year, you go back to your country. But if you do a STEM course, you can stay 3 years after your studies in the US before you can switch to either H1B visa or going back to your country. So I advise most people go for STEM courses. After one is done with schooling, are there processes one can undertake to make it a permanent move? Yeah, so you can switch from F1 visa to other visa categories. So there is H1B visa. H1B visa is like what people call um the work or employment visa. Okay, so you can switch from that to H1 visa. Um, you can there are other visa categories that one can switch to. Okay, so that's if you don't want to come back to Nigeria. But at the point of application and and your visa interview, the intention must be to come back to Nigeria, especially when you go for your interview. You must make it known expressly that you're coming back to Nigeria. They want to hear you say, after studying, I intend to come back to Nigeria to do so and so and so thing. Okay. The moment they find out that you have the slightest um, um, likelihood of remaining in the US, your visa gets denied. Okay. So GRE, how easy it is, or can one get scholarship without GRE? Yeah, so GRE is not easy. So I'm going to be fooling you if I tell you GRE it's very competitive. It's very hard. Okay, so that's why I said you need at least 3 months to prepare for a GRE. It doesn't mean people are not passing GRE. There are people in Nigeria who are smashing GRE. There are people who are getting graduate assistantship from 3, 4 schools. They just have to make a choice on which one to go for. Okay, so a lot of people are smashing it. So dedicate the next 3 months studying for GRE, and I'm sure you're going to pass. Can a person with 2-2 in biochemistry apply for public health? So if you have 2-2, your chances are very limited. Okay, so you have to look out for grade B schools, grade C schools, those schools that have like very high acceptance rates. Okay, apply to those schools. But if you apply to those schools that have like very small acceptance rates, with 2-2, it's going to be very difficult for you to get admission. And with 2-2, I want to assume you're looking at maybe 3.0 to 3.50. Because if your CGPA is below 3.0, then it's going to be really difficult for you to get any admission. Another question is, you said one can use masters obtained in Poland to get another master's study in USA. Won't it raise any alerts to visa officer? So the first thing to get admission. Once you get admission, I think your problem is half solved. Okay. The only thing the visa officers want, they just want you to convince them that you've done a master's in public health and you want to do a master's in business administration. So you have to convince them that, okay, I've done masters in public health, but I need business skills so I can set up a public health agency or a public health so and so organization. So I need the business skills to be able to run this public health business. So just make sense to them. They want to see you explain to them why you're making this switch. Okay. So, but everything is possible. Don't say it's not possible. Can someone with F2 visa work in the US? So if you have F2 visa, if your dependents are coming on F2 visa, they can't work in the US. They can't work in the US. The only person that can work in the US is the person that has the F1 visa. And the only place you can work is in the school. Okay? You can't work outside the school. You can only work in the school and you can only work for 20 hours per week. You can't work for more than 20 hours and you can't work outside the school. If you work outside the school, it is illegal. And if you're caught working outside the school, your study visa, your F1 visa can be terminated. Okay, so you have to be very careful about that. The F1 visa comes with some rules and regulations that you have to abide strictly to. The moment you flout any of those rules, it's very likely that you get a visa revoked. And once a visa is revoked, the next thing is you're finding yourself in Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos. Okay. Okay, so I think I've been able to do justice. All right, so follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. My Twitter handle is Mundus01. I'll be dropping more information on my LinkedIn profile, schools that are currently doing accepting applications, schools that are currently accepting graduate assistantship. I'm going to post them on my Facebook page, LinkedIn page, and Twitter. So make sure you're following me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn name is Martin Owakwe Chigozie, and on Twitter I am Mundus01, MUNDUS01. Okay. All right. So thank you very much. I hope you guys have enough information, and I wish you good luck and success as you embark on this journey. Okay? Good luck, guys, and good night.